It is now past 7 o'clock on March 17th. I'll call the Minnetrista City Council meeting to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome. I'm Cheryl Fisher, the mayor. To my left are council members Vander, Lindy, Hunt, Donahue, and Christians, and our city engineer, Mark Erickson. To my right are the city staff, our city administrator, Mike Funk, our city finance director, Brian Grimm, our city attorney, Ron Beatty, our assistant administrator, Ron Baroni, too many mics, too many marks, Mike Baroni, and our director of public safety, Paul Falls. With the agenda, there's a couple little things I just want to ask the council. Down under consent agenda number C should not be under consent, so I'm going to take it off of there if that's all right, because it's already listed under 6B for discussions, okay? Also under 6 business items, there's item A, which is water treatment discussion. Do we still wish to have that, or was our work session the discussion?
I don't see any reason why we need to have it.
Yeah.
We've already been there. I don't think we need to have it any further.
Do we want to state what the motion was at the special meeting? Why don't you?
Well, it's all been videotaped, so I don't know.
I know, but maybe there's new people. I don't know. Okay.
Well, it's nobody, well, it doesn't matter to me.
One suggestion, Madam Mayor, just, you could take it off the agenda, and then under council reports, you could
Yeah.
speak to it.
Okay, taking those two things into consideration, I would appreciate a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same sign, 5-0. It's the count. Next item would be the persons to be heard. First person, Tom, it must be Donahue. Regarding water, Mr. Donahue? That's his, look like he's ready.
Donahue, 6115 Sunnyfield Road. I've been here since '64. I think at the last meeting, I was cut off. I think there's a thing that our attorney would vouch for as far as freedom of speech, and it's in our Constitution. This time, I'd like to speak without being cut off. I just found out that our well on Game Farm 2A is a $500,000, $500,000 hole in the ground. And I think if any leprechauns are looking for gold, there's out there $500,000 sitting there. Now, I've been trying to get our roads fixed for years. That $500,000 would go a long way. And I think that we should try and do something better than have some outfit that's trying to do something that they can't do, get it done. Now, I'm a plumber. I'm not a brain surgeon. Everybody's got their limitations, and I think we better go with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Next person, Tom Nash. Mr. Nash?
Good evening.
Good
I was
evening.
here for the 5 o'clock meeting, and I know that you guys took a motion to try to get some RFPs on additional pricing. And engineers, and I'm that way too, tend to be kind of modest people. You try not to brag yourself up. And I've had my own business for 31 years. I've been registered engineer for probably 33 years. I'm familiar with a lot of the firms in town. Worked with WSB before. I've worked with Bolton Mink. And let me say this, as far as people that are qualified to do a water treatment plant, nobody's done more water treatment plants in the state of Minnesota than Bolton and Mink. Nobody's done more reverse osmosis plants than Bolton and Mink. I'm not sure why we're getting these additional, RFPs out there. I think we're just going to waste 2 or 3 weeks of valuable time, and I think you'd be well served to just hire Bolton and Mink to do a little more studying, and let's figure out what we're doing, what direction we're going, and then if you want to get some other prices at that time, you can. But as a city, you're not mandated to bid out engineering services. You can go with the person that's most qualified, and I just wanted to let you know from what my experience has been, and it's vast through many, many years, you've got the best one in Bolton and Mink that you're talking to as far as water plants. That's all I had to say. Thanks for all your time.
Yeah, I have no disagreement with what you're saying. My only question would be that we hired Bolton and Mink to do the VE study, and I'm just wondering if there's a conflict of interest of some kind there without going through any kind of a process. That's my only question.
Yeah, I don't believe that, I think you can hire, as a council and a mayor in the city, you can hire whoever you want to for engineering services. You don't have, you don't have to get bids or anything.
Okay,
Yeah, but I mean, they'll be fair with you. I know many of the people they work with a number of cities. I know city administrator, one they work with, he really highly recommended them. Not just for water, for even being the city engineer. So I think that'd be worth looking at as well. Thank you so much.
thank you. Mr. Beatty, did you wish to comment on that about the contract or?
No, Mr. Notch is correct. It's
Okay.
professional services, and you don't need to bid professional services. I mean, I think what the city engineer, or city attorney, city manager or administrator was saying is best practice is to go out and come up with a number of proposals so that you can compare, but that's not legally required for professional services.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. All right, item number 3 is special presentations. There are none this evening. Our consent agenda now consists of approving the March 3rd special and regular meeting minutes. Item D is a resolution receiving bids and awarding contract for the SCADA system rehabilitation project, city project number 05-13. Item E, which is a resolution awarding contract for lift station and sanitary sewer cleaning. F, which is a resolution approving an agreement for street sweeping services. G, which is a resolution approving the agreement between the City of Minnetrista and Advanced Property Maintenance. And H, which is a resolution approving the agreement between the City of Minnetrista and Trugreen.
Madam Mayor, it's unusual for myself to pull something from the consent agenda. However, I would ask that items 4E, F, and H be pulled. You do have revised documents here in front of you, and I certainly can explain the reason for that.
Did you say E, F, and G?
E, F, and H.
E, F, and H, oh, okay. Then if I could have an okay for the rest of them, and then we'll take these out with
If I
Mark.
can just interject, as a matter of procedure, Madam Mayor and Council, so the city staff has recommended pulling the items just mentioned, E, F, and H.
Yes,
That is a council action item, so you would need council to actually pull the item.
oh, because I did tell them before I set the agenda that they were coming in, they were okay.
Okay, I'd
All
like
right.
to pull item E, F, and H.
I'll second it.
You still want them to approve the, no, that's still on the agenda, right?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. So the remaining items are being recommended for
Okay.
approval in the consent agenda. Staff is recommending just to pull those items to provide clarity based on some of the new bid information.
You're right. Okay, except for E, F, and H, there has been a motion and a second to approve the rest of the consent agenda items. Is there any other further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the motion is be the same. Okay. E, Mark?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The award of the contract for cleaning the lift stations and sanitary sewer. Gary Peters was receiving these. I had prepared this item and asked that he receive them because he's here every day. He had taken off for vacation on Friday. We had received these, an additional quote late in the day on Thursday, after he had left for the day. And so this item specifically just adds the last bidder as Visu Sewer. They are not the low bidder, but I just wanted to reflect that bid in this item. Our recommendation is still the same, awarding a contract to Overline and Sons in the amount of $26,998.87. We have worked with them in the past. 2 years ago, we've worked with those gentlemen, and they've done a phenomenal job for us in the past. Don't have any question with their quality of work.
Okay. Council would like to approve that, or you have questions, or? The rest of them?
I'll approve item E on the consent agenda for Overland and Son for the sum of $26,998.87.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded then to approve that resolution. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion will, approved by 5-0. The next item is item F, which is a resolution approving an agreement for street sweeping services. Mark, is that you too?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Similar to the last item, late in the day Thursday, we received an additional quote that Gary was not able to provide me as he had left for the day from ReliaCore Services. As you can see here, that did affect the low bidder. As you may recall, last year, we had utilized Carefree Services again, even though they were slightly higher in cost due to the fact that they use an air broom rather than an air system, like a vacuum, rather than a broom system. The broom option does require about a week of staff time for watering the streets as well as dump truck taking the materials back. And so that is one item that, again, we do recommend Carefree Services still, as we did last year, and the council approved. It is slightly more expensive, but it does involve a lot less staff time associated with that, and it does yield a better product as well. This is something, again, that we do offer to our properties that are on private streets, and so we'll be contacting homeowners associations associated with that as well to see if they're interested in sweeping at our bid prices.
Oh, good. Excellent. Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item F for the award of contract for street sweeping services to Carefree Services.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion will carry 5-0. Item H, and I guess that would be you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Well, this one we did have all the bids in. However, Gary had worked on an item. The one that you see in front of you is one that I reviewed that he had provided. I believe Gary had saved that, the wrong document in the council packet is what I'm told. And so what I asked him to do is provide a breakout of the costs associated with the fertilization and weed control for the wells and lift station sites. Last year, that item was pulled and asked that those were removed. I don't believe Gary may not have recalled that, and so I asked him to break that out. Our recommendation is for award excluding those locations, and if you'd like to add those back in, the costs are identified there, but again, our recommendation is without those costs, as was completed for last season.
So their cost without is the 7461, is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions?
Make a motion to award, is it item H to Trugreen in a total of $7,461.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion will carry 5-0. The number 5, public hearings. There are no public hearings this evening, so we're going to move right on to the business items. I think we talked about, well, are we going to do this under council reports, or do you want them to? The water treatment discussion, do we want to reiterate the motion, or we did it at the work session at 5 o'clock. It is videotaped, but whatever you want to do is fine with me, so.
Can we just give a quick oversight of what we did?
Go ahead.
Well, I wasn't figuring me to do it.
You
'Cause I'm not very
you
good
spoke
at
up
it.
first.
You want to do it, Mike? Would you?
Well,
please?
Mike
Yes.
wrote it out
Please.
first, so we'll let him do it. He'll give an overview and the motion for us, or whatever he has.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor and the council, and really, as just mentioned, at 5 o'clock this evening, we did have our work session, our special meeting dedicated for the purposes of talking about water treatment. The council, again, in summary, spent about 2 hours discussing, the options at hand, and received some really valuable information from both WSB and Bolton and Mink, who performed our value engineering study. And really, that was a lot of the information was related to Bolton and Mink. They did provide, again, information regarding the study that they performed on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, March 26th through the 28th. And so part of that value engineering study was for the council to receive really more information, and for the city to take a step back and perform their due diligence, because I think, as we recognize, this is certainly an important project, one that has some long-term consequences, because it's certainly as a structure and as a facility and infrastructure that we're constructing as part of the city, this is certainly that will have an impact to many of our residents, especially those on the drinking water system. The outcome of that discussion was that the council made a motion that directed staff to prepare an RFP, and the purpose of the RFP is to further, the purpose of the RFP is to solicit proposals from engineers that will really help the city identify more accurate costs as it relates to the recommendations that were presented in the value engineering study. The recommendations in the value engineering study were cost estimates, and there are a range of costs based on some assumptions, and that's what a value engineering study does. And so I think for the city, for the staff, and for the council, what we want to try to do is really identify specifically what those costs are and what this proposal will really provide to the city is an information regarding kind of twofold. One is evaluating whether we should have a central facility or separate plants, one that would be separated from a central facility, and then looking at gravity filtration and reverse osmosis based under those two assumptions, either again central facility or separated facilities. And so with getting further assistance on identifying those costs, that will again lay the foundation for the council to ultimately decide which type of facility and where these facilities would be built, and then again, more importantly, understanding the true costs. And that way, we will be able to talk to our residents about how that impacts them, because the folks that are going to be paying for this system are the users. We roughly have 1,150 users in the city, which is roughly half of our households, and so certainly a significant impact to those that are going to be potentially paying for this. So we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence and studying the issue as best as we can for the long-term solution of the city. I think the other important factor to mention is that the council also want to make sure that whatever we construct, that it has a longer-term implication, meaning that looking out 15 years from now. And I think what was discussed in our work session was having a 2013 type analysis, and that what we construct today is good for the longer term, rather than having more of a phasing in approach. So with that, the staff will be preparing that RFP, and then we'll bring those results back to you. I think what we talked about was about a month time frame that's involved. We will communicate, and I think it's important that we communicate to our residents. Staff will talk at our staff meeting, and likely what we'll want to do is send out some level of information, as I just mentioned, and summarize that into better detail and provide that probably in a separate mailer is what I would suggest. We mail this information out, because I think residents are wanting to know what's happening, and so we'll want to make sure we communicate what the city is doing as we progress in this discussion. Last thing I do want to probably mention is in persons to be heard, Mr. Notch mentioned that you don't have to do an RFP, and that's true. With professional services, you don't have to do that. What was suggested by staff, and I think even by some of the engineers during our 5 o'clock work session, is that really best practices suggest that you solicit proposals from engineering firms, and that way what you're doing is ensuring that you are getting the lowest cost possible, and it's competitively done. And like with any quote that you receive, it doesn't mean that you have to take the lowest one. And oftentimes, as illustrated here earlier this evening in the consent agenda, you make decisions not only based on cost, but you make decisions based on experience and knowledge in the marketplace and the ability to perform the task at hand. And so you weigh those considerations when you do receive RFPs. And so I would assume that going through an RFP process, although it does take, like I said, a few weeks to receive proposals, it doesn't exclude an engineering firm, and it allows you an ability to evaluate different engineering firms, and it's very possible at the end of the day you do select Bolton & Mink or another firm, and you'll get to decide if that's the right choice for the city. You don't have to do that process. You can certainly select an engineering firm at your discretion, and that's true for any professional services.
All right, thank you, Mike.
So that's a summary. Again, council, anything to add, or if I missed something, please feel
Was
free.
it unanimous? That we go
I'm sorry,
through-
yes,
do
so
our
it was a unanimous
due
vote, correct.
diligence, yes. Okay, moving on then to the item, under the business items, item B, which is the SRO agreement discussion. Mike, is that you?
Correct, Madam Mayor and Council.
Or
Starting on
Paul, maybe.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and start the conversation. On page 49 of your packet is the staff report. We've listed this item on the agenda. Currently, the SRO agreement with the West Tonka School District does expire the end of the 2013-2014 calendar year. So really, in the next few months, that SRO agreement expires at the end of this school year. A new contract would need to be approved or in place prior to the start of the 2014-2015 school year for the SRO to have a presence in the school at the beginning of next school year. As noted in the staff report, council members Christians and Mayor Fisher were part of the city-appointed liaisons to work with the school district on a potential new contract. And most recently, the action taken on February 3rd is noted in your staff report in that the city supports the concept of a 2-year agreement for the school resource officer with an annual increase of $4,000 contingent on the school committing to the donation of land by March 1st, 2014. As you know, that was a unanimous motion approved by the council. On Monday, February 27th, the West Tonka School Board approved the transfer of the land. To date, it has not yet been officially transferred. As I think you've seen earlier correspondence from our city attorney, there's a number of legal hoops that we need to correct and proceed in terms of getting the actual official land transferred to the city. On Monday, March 10th, then the West Tonka School Board approved the SRO agreement. That agreement is attached in your packet. It does outline the agreement is very similar to past agreements. It is indicated 2-year agreement. In terms of the $4,000, it doesn't specifically state the $4,000, but what it does is it references the Safe Schools Levy. And I think there's been further information provided to you that with the Safe Schools Levy, it is anticipated that we would get slightly more than the $4,000 for the first year of the contract. That amount obviously is subject to change depending on what happens with the Safe School Levy beyond the first year. So what's been provided to you, Mayor and Council, is what the school district has approved. I think what is at least reasonably assumed on staff's part is that they are expecting now the city to approve it. That's why it's in your council packet. And so at this time, I turn over to you, Madam Mayor and Council, for consideration. There are probably 2 options for consideration. One is to approve the agreement by motion, so that you have as an option. The other is that depending on the outcome of the water discussion, the city may not necessarily need that land if we go to a central type system. So I think probably the conversation you'll need to is really kind of regarding which direction the city should proceed on this matter. And then we turn over to Madam Mayor also and Councilmember Christians, as they were part of the folks that sat down with the school district and talked about this arrangement.
I personally have a couple of problems with this right now, and the reason being there's some unknowns. As you just stated a few seconds ago, from the land standpoint, if the city chose to go to a central location, that property would not be needed or required. And I would hate to see the city end up with that property and the liability that would go with it. So I think at this point in time, it would be my recommendation, and I would like to make a motion that this be put on hold until we know what we're doing or where we're going with our water treatment plant. I don't want to go ahead and see us proceed with the land transfer and have it become a liability if it's not needed, as Mike just alluded to. So.
And it is attached to our well, as you know.
Yeah.
So
So
we want
I
to keep
would
our
prefer
eye
that.
on it.
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
in
I'm
case,
not
because if
saying
we
no, I'm
don't
just
go
saying
that
at this
route, we
point
might
in
want to.
time, let's not make the city liable for something that we may not need.
Can we table that for a while and go back to them later as we progress with our discussions, do you think? Mr. Beatty, would you like to comment?
Given the legal opinion on that, Ron?
I don't think that's a legal issue. I mean, I think it's a policy question.
Well, I guess I'm asking you, how far down the road are you? And so it
You know,
doesn't really matter because.
Well,
if we
yeah,
change it-
Madam Mayor and council, I worked on this quite a bit in February, after probably the February 3rd meeting. Got the agreement, we need what's effectively a purchase agreement, identified some title issues. As the city administrator said, I think I put out a letter that apparently you've seen that identified more issues than we thought were there, that'll have to be corrected. There'll be a land use, the lot division that has to happen. Lots of little things need to happen. I haven't done a thing in the last couple of weeks, given, you know, this uncertainty, and so,
I'm sure it'll change if we come back and we don't do whatever and we need that land again. They'll want us to do all
well,
those
they
things.
may well, but I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I
we can
stopped.
table it for now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I stopped working on the land piece of it, but this
Good.
is different. This,
I think,
Good.
I think maybe, and Mr. Beatty isn't saying this, but I think probably for the council, it's more of a political matter for yourselves.
Yeah,
you know, for the
sure.
city, is that, how will the school view the city tabling this? I mean, I think that's probably more the issue at hand than not. Legally, you can table it, legally, you can take your time on it, for all the reasons that we've mentioned, that makes sense. I think in terms of, you know, the relationship with the school and, you know,
Well-
what's been discussed at this point is probably more the political matter.
Well, I don't think we're gonna take land that we don't need, no matter who owns it. And I think that if we can explain to the school that our engineering evaluation and so on came back and we're having trouble finding, or not trouble, we're looking in different spots and we haven't decided yet. And so therefore, we would like to put this on hold. They won't like it probably, because if they thought they went through a bunch of stuff to give it to us, you know, but they'll be fine.
I agree with you. I think that's very important, because also from the initial time when the three of us sat down with them to discuss this whole thing, there have been delays on both sides.
Probably so.
So, I mean, there's questions on their side, there are questions on our
Well,
side.
I
So
don't think we
there'll
need
be
to
a
blame
problem.
about it. We just, we can't do it because we're not for sure using that
Right.
land, so that doesn't make
I
any
don't
sense.
see that as an issue.
I hope not. So then, the SRO agreement, right?
Yeah, so this is,
Okay,
so
one or-
the agenda item is,
Table it. Yeah, I did make a motion to table it.
I'll
if we
second
could.
it.
And I said,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table. Is there any further questions or
Two
comments?
comment? No.
If not, all those in
Oh.
favor signify by, what?
sorry, Madam Mayor, I think Chief Falls has a comment to make.
Okay,
Because this is a
I'm sorry,
SRO
Paul.
agreement that I'm sure he'd probably like to comment on.
Sure.
So there one thing,
Well, thank you, Mr. Funk. Madam Mayor, members of council, I hope I'm not too late here with my comments.
No.
Just thinking out loud from my perspective, I view these as two entirely separate issues, and while I understand the comments and the concerns and the reasons for them, I believe the contract before you tonight is in and of itself regards the contract, or the SRO specifically. It has nothing to do with the land, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, so with that, I feel strongly that this is a good faith attempt on the school district's part to try and increase the amount of money that they're giving us for the SRO, and so my fear is that not approving this would possibly cause some future strain on that relationship. And I think it's also important for the police department to move forward with finding a new SRO for future years here and to move forward. And so I guess from my perspective, I would like to see this approved as presented here. And while I understand the land issue initially was discussed as part of maybe a package, for lack of a better term, it is ultimately a separate issue and will probably take some time to sort through. And so with that in mind, I think it's probably important that we move forward with this piece of it and then obviously take our time with the land portion of it. So I guess that's just my perspective.
okay. Council?
wasn't the SRO agreement though contingent on the fact that we would pay an additional $4,000 if we got the land?
We aren't
If it
gonna
was
pay
donated?
anything?
They received.
Received.
Yeah,
We're getting an extra
Right.
4,000, yes.
right.
Exactly.
That was the original motion, so I think the
We'll make
one
it-
is contingent on the other.
I don't know
Well,
where
there-
you're going with that.
They're two separate, but and I understand where you're coming from.
Okay, the
but
land
we
was
have
gonna be a
time.
gift. They're
Right.
kind of together, but they're not supposed to be. They're going to give us a little bit over $4,000 this year as a raise to the SRO agreement. Hopefully next year, that same grant that they get that money from, the Safe and Sober grant, will get us even more next year. No guarantee, but it seems to be, and I think our motion would be, we would approve, if we're going to approve it, we would approve it with I think the money is in here. It's like $4,111 or something like that.
In the agreement that was spelled out though, Mike, excuse me, you recall, I remember seeing something to the effect that they would agree with $4,000, but there would be some reciprocal things that would take place, and also the land was somehow in that agreement. I don't have that agreement in front of me, but you recall that agreement, Mike?
Well, we tried to talk all around that. I don't know.
I know that in the letter that I had seen,
I agree with you.
they
I
mentioned
agree
two
with you.
things. They mentioned, one, the land, and two, some reciprocal, down the road of making it up somehow as a gentleman's agreement.
Well, we
So,
might, but.
Yeah. But-
If I could, Madam Mayor, and to your point, Councilmember Christians, that's correct. And I think from my perspective, I think what both entities, when I say both entities, both the city and the school are trying to do is find a cooperative working relationship. And I think Mr. Christians and Mayor Fisher heard some level of frustration from the school district about some past type of issues that may have surfaced, and again, I think there's some frustrations expressed on the city's part, and so I think
Sure.
in the spirit of that, I think even though we're saying the issues are separate, they are connected to some degree, and I think in the spirit of this agreement, what was discussed was what we've talked about, and that is, the city looking for the land, and so we've extended our hand on that front, and I think not really in exchange for that, but certainly in the again, as I say, in cooperation and trying to work together, the school was looking for us to settle on a 2-year agreement. So I think both sides are willing to really do one for the other, in essence, and so certainly it does raise concern as to if we don't need that land, does that change the implications outlined in this contract?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have until, and I understand where Paul's coming from, but they would like to get it done as soon as possible, but it has to be done prior to the 2014-2015 school year, is that correct?
That
I
would be
mean,
correct.
You don't wanna leave
Yes.
it till the 11th hour, but I mean, if 30 days was to go by, would it be a make it or break it? If it was tabled for 30 days?
I don't think we should table anymore. I think we should get on with it. We are partners with the school, and I think we should move on. If we want to separate the land and we want to separate the SRO, let's do it. But let's not keep this rolling. We've talked about this at how many meetings now? And, we agreed to it while we were there.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I was simply just trying to point out that the contract that's before you tonight for approval doesn't discuss the land piece is all.
I understand.
And so therefore, that could be approved as is, and then you could take your time with the land. That's all I was trying to point out. To your question, Mr. Christians, it certainly wouldn't make or break it, I don't believe, if it was 30 days. I just understand that this process has been a long one, and so I don't know if it'll be 30 days or 60 days or 90 days to work through that very issue or not. I'm not sure if we'll
Train someone.
have an answer by then or not, so.
And I think if I could, Madam Mayor and Council, maybe just, again, to be more definitive on the timelines. So this contract, as mentioned, expires the end of 2013, 2014 school season. So that really is June of this year. I don't know exactly when the school gets out. I know that's kind of a shifting sands of
Yeah.
the school deadlines, but
June
it's
1st.
basically June-ish timeframe when the school ends, which would in essence end this contract. And so school starts after Memorial Day, Labor Day. Starts after Labor Day, so that's September. And so it's really the time frame that you have to work with is having an agreement in place by that September start of school day. Now, to your point, Mr. Christian, you don't want to make it 11th hour, whatever the 11th hour is, if that's August, but certainly I think we want to be committed to at least working with the school district between now and then to secure this agreement.
I'd like to get it done and over with, so it's not on our plate anymore. We have so many important things coming along that, you know, that could easily get lost in the shuffle somewhere. But, whatever, let's go. Talked about it long enough.
What?
I mean, what?
Well, I mean, they didn't respond by the deadline.
Oh,
That's
for
all.
heaven's
Well,
I make a motion to table it.
There is a motion and second already on the
Oh,
table.
okay. I made the motion, right?
There's a motion to table the item, right, with a second.
Until what
Yep.
date, any date?
I didn't hear a date.
Okay. Well, not allowed to do it. Any more comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, and I will vote no. We keep going over and over and over the same things. Okay, next item is item C, which is a resolution accepting quotation from EPA Audio Visual Inc. for City Council Chambers Technology. Who, Mr. Brony, is that you?
Yes, it is, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to take a couple of minutes here just to discuss this item, just to give you a little bit more detail. I'm going to circle back to 2011. I had something similar to this on the agenda in front of the City Council at that point, and actually broke it out into audiovisual complete package and then a kind of an audio only. At that time, the council decided to go with the audio only, which was fine. We desperately needed an upgrade in our audio equipment, and we were just been surviving with our video as is, previously with LMCC and now through a contract of our own. So that kind of brings us to today. There is a little bit of a difference, obviously, for what we're going to purchase and how it's going to be used and what additional things need to be purchased in order to get us up to speed. Not only are we going to buy the video portion of this, but we will be relocating the audio box that's over there on the wall with the other video equipment that will be down the hall in the storage room, 20 paces from the back of this council chambers door. Because of the breakup of the LMCC, as far as the city of Minnetrista being a participant, and us going off on our own, it's kind of added one additional layer of things for us to be able to provide in order to televise our council meetings, both live and on video replay. We're going to have to essentially create a small studio. I use the word loosely. You can also refer to that maybe as just a master control. What it will allow us to do is once the snow, if it ever thaws, be able to directionally bore and have a fiber optic cable connected to the building. What we'll be able to do essentially then is on the night we have city council meetings is we'll be able to televise these council meetings live to people that are subscribers to MediaCom. So if you wanted to tune in the city council meeting at 7 o'clock, you would turn on channel, I'm going to refer to my notes, channel 8, which is the analog channel, or channel 96, which is the digital channel. Those are both the city channels. And you'll be able to watch the city council meeting live. That's because we will have the studio capability with whether it's Isaac Life or some other council or some other technician in the future to be able to sit at the control panel in the back, master control, be able to flip between the 3 cameras and the right now we have a projector and that kind of stuff, and be able to kind of put together the production and create a live broadcast, and then of course we would also record that and then replay that back. The master control or studio that we would have here would allow us to program on a schedule of our choosing when we wanted to replay our city council meetings. Right now what you do is if you want to watch them, you dial into LMCC, or as of December 31st of last year, you would dial into LMCC to watch those. What you would do in the future is just turn on your channel, your cable channel, and you could watch that. We may, if we have council meetings on Monday at 7, we maybe repeat them on the following Mondays at 7 in between our council meetings, maybe an additional 2 or 3 times during the week at different times of the day. Then on the in-between times when the council meetings aren't running or some other community program may be running, we would have a loop, probably a PowerPoint with a dedicated computer. That would provide, some information for the community news and notes. Those are the things we'll need to buy extra that we didn't need to buy 3 years ago when I had this before you. So the
The bottom line quote is from EPA Audiovisual. They were actually the same group that we bought the audio equipment from. They will be incorporating the same audio equipment into this, moving it down the hall. And then once we get the fiber optic cable picking us up and sending us out to the fiber optic cable that's located on 110, taking it over to the Mound OTN site, then we'll be able to go live and then also replay our council meetings and whatever else we may want to do. If we want to do some videotaping at Trista Day or any other sort of community event, we could do that. We would just have to be able to pay a technician like Isaac or somebody else to put together it. They could pre and post production, this kind of stuff, put it on our cable channel. We could rerun it till our heart's content. So what you have in front of you is a motion to purchase the equipment from EPA Audiovisual in the amount of $45,453.79. One additional piece of equipment that will need to be purchased that's not in this tonight, and I did touch upon it in my staff report, is that there is a box, for lack of a better phrase, that will be able to connect our city's master control with the OTN site in Mound, that interface box. And that's a vital piece of technology that takes the signal and breaks it into a digital, sends it, and then they can reconfigure it at the site. I had that separate because we're buying that from MediaCom. That's something that we would buy from them and not from any of the vendors that I had solicit bids for us tonight. So that will be coming to you probably at the next council meeting or the one after. There's no real rush on this to get it there. I can get, if we get this approved tonight, we can get the folks from EPA started on ordering, eventually installing this. We still have to wait for the snow to melt in order to do the directional boring that's going to require to provide that fiber optic cable to our building, and so that's in the months to come. So I would entertain any questions if you have them, or a motion.
How much is that extra box gonna cost? You didn't say you're getting it from MediaCom, but.
MediaCom, the dollar amount that he quoted me is $4,100 for that box,
Okay.
and I'm actually working on something maybe to get that for less than that. So, but that's the kind of the maximum price. In between that cost and this cost, we're still under the $50,000 that was awarded in the grant, or not the grant.
The loan.
With the loan, the no interest, low interest loan from MediaCom to purchase the
which is
equipment through the
good.
PEG fees.
Who are you working with the directional boring?
The guy's name is Chris Thompson. He's the construction coordinator for MediaCom, and he was here in, I want to say either late January, early February, and we kind of walked around and kind of figured out the best way to get that fiber optic cable here. He knows where theirs is. I showed him where our studio was going to be, and I think it's not going to, that'll be to come, so.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I have one. Mike, I missed something. Where was the money coming from, and is it in the budget?
Well, it's part of it, and if Councilmember Hunt or somebody else would like to chime in, when we got the agreement that we made as a city, standalone city with MediaCom, they were able to.
Then you got the 50,000.
The 50,000 is kind of upfront money. They'll help us buy that equipment that would help us televise. And then we would pay them
It's on
through the
PEG
PEG
fees.
fees that come into us monthly.
Okay.
And they'll just keep it, or we'll give it to them, or however, Brian can answer that. But whether it comes to us, we send it to them, or they just keep it, one or the other.
Okay.
And they just keep buying down the dollar amount till we get to zero, and then we get to keep it.
And we get
But we
revenue
in fact
stream.
pay it back.
I just want to make sure we're not digging in our pockets.
That is correct.
No.
If I
That is
could-
correct.
Okay.
I had a question on, do you have the program that's comparable to Granicus, or I didn't see that. Did I miss that?
Well, that is for the agenda parsing, and
Yeah.
that's not what this is about. This is about just providing the technology in this council chambers in order to send the
Yeah.
signal to that. And that Granicus piece would be an additional piece that we would have to buy in order to parse our agendas, et cetera.
Yeah, I was hoping we could keep it all under 50.
I,
I know that Orono was right, what, around 30, 35? And they bought Granicus on top of it.
well,
I don't know,
These are-
did you talk to them at all? Because they,
well, we've talked to them preliminarily. I know Terry Harstead and I are sort of working on that piece together, and we haven't talked to them for a little while, but
I wonder why they were able to do it, because they had to buy the same thing from MediaCom. They had to buy cameras.
well, what I understand from MediaCom, I think what they're buying, they're not really buying kind of, and this is not a Cadillac system, I'll tell you that for sure. I mean, we could have bought something a little higher, and I told both quotes that I got that that's not where we want to go. But I'm not sure that the Orno system, at least according to Lowell Thone, who's the network administrator guy for MediaCom, if he's all that happy with the signal that they'll be sending over through the equipment they're buying. So they really, I think it's an analog signal.
Oh.
And we're going to a digital format here. That's where everything's going.
Yeah, I don't know, I just knew they did it all for
Yeah,
a lot less. I didn't know what the difference was, that's why.
Yeah, I think they're kind of, they took a notch down approach, and they're breaking down their signal and they're sending it over in analog, and then they're reconfiguring. You have a lot of lost quality as far as the feed that you get doing it that way. I got a quote on that, but
So how much more do you think the Granicus or whatever other company?
I wish I could answer that question right now. I just can't. I don't know the answer to
If you
that.
guys were looking at that.
We should ask Arno, because I think they paid for theirs too out of their tax dollars, and then they were hoping to get it back again, but not the grant dollars, but because they wanted it.
Well, I think we can still use PEG fees for that.
Could be.
Correct, because it's cap.
Yeah.
Need to find that out, though.
if I could,
Where they use
Madam
it.
Mayor, can I interject a couple comments? And
Sure.
First, I'm gonna go back to, if I could, Councilmember Christian's question, just in terms of how the cash flow works. So as Councilmember Hunt mentioned, there's PEG fees and then there's the franchise fees. And so as a cable subscriber, on your cable bill, or on their cable bill, you actually have two fees. One's again called PEG, P-E-G, which stands for something.
A public
Public
education
Education
and
and
government.
Government.
There you go. So there you go. So PEG stands for that, and then there is the franchise fee. Those are two separate fees. The PEG fee on an annual basis, give or take, maybe couple $1,000 off the top of my head, it's like $10,000 or $12,000 a year is what the city, not the city, but that's what's generated in PEG fees from the Minnetrista subscribers. Franchise fees is roughly, if I'm not mistaken, 35,000. Again, this is all from kind of memory here. And so annually, those two fees are about 50,000, 45 to 50,000. And so the PEG fees, Mr. Christians, that's where the city would repay MediaCom for the purchase of tonight's discussion. So what's being presented to you this evening is roughly 45,000 in expenditures. That $12,000 a year, the city would not receive that $12,000 in PEG fees. What in essence, what will happen is MediaCom will keep that, and they'll have a running tally of just,
Yeah, with no.
they'll start with 45,000, and then after year one, they'll deduct it by 12,000. By year two, they'll deduct it by another 12,000. So there'll be a repayment of
We
approximately
figured about 5 years.
about 5
4 to 5
years,
years.
of which MediaCom will just retain those PEG dollars, and that'll eventually pay off our 0% interest loans.
And then once it's paid off, we keep it.
Then
Right, then
then
we
the
get to keep it.
12,000 per year will come to the city.
But it can only be used for capital improvements, it can't be used for operations.
Right.
Correct. And
So
then
we could buy more cameras, but we can't pay Isaac with those.
Yeah,
that
we
money.
can't pay Isaac with it.
Sorry, Isaac.
How about his chair?
So there is no so bottom line to your concern, there is no out-of-pocket cost by taxpayers for this purchase. So it's
Thank
funded through the PEG fees. And then the franchise fees, as you mentioned, Councilmember Hunt, there are a couple different options for the city in terms of the agenda parsing. It's a really nice feature that I think we brought up here. It's been a while now, probably a few months, where we talked about agenda parsing and how you're able to get that on the internet and view it on the city's website. And so those will be proposals coming forward to you, so it's separate from what you see here. I know Terry did some initial or preliminary research on those costs. Again, I don't have that in front of us to give you a range, but it's, I don't know if you remember, Terry, but
Well, I think depending on where you went, of course, Granicus is the most popular, but they're also the most expensive. There's other systems that are used in other states that a lot of cities are looking at getting, and everybody's waiting for somebody else to jump in, and they're significantly lower with a similar quality. So, I mean, it's anywhere from $6,000 to $25,000, and so really it depends. We need to do an apples to apples comparison, so it's really hard to talk about it tonight because we're still researching.
Got it.
and then the last comment I would make, Madam Mayor and Council, that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brony, but I think one of the differences between what's being proposed for your consideration and what the city of Orono did is that we're, part of this quote involves going to live streaming on the TV.
Correct.
I don't believe Orono has that feature. They live stream to their website and not to the TV. And so that requires additional equipment, which is included in our proposal. So
Got it.
you could modify your proposal if you didn't want that feature. From staff's perspective, we presented to you going both live on TV as well as the internet.
What's the timeline for implementation?
Generally, it's 60 to 90 days for the equipment order and install. I don't know the actual, I won't be able to until I contact my folks at EPA to find out some more specific dates. I'll try to get those maybe at our next meeting on just the install, the order and install. And then I'll contact MediaCom and I'll talk with them about, obviously they can't predict the weather, but you know, it's usually generally pretty nice around here in April. So April, May, I would assume that'd be the time frame when that directional boring would take place in order to start connecting us up with that fiber optic cable. So hopefully at the next meeting, I'll have a little bit better handle on it. And then maybe Ms. Harstead and I can maybe give you a flavor. We still may not be ready to give you quotes or purchases on with a council action item for Granicus or a similar product for agenda parsing, et cetera, but hopefully we can at least give you a flavor of where we're at and what we're looking at. So maybe we'll do something like that.
Just for a little more explanation, Mike, you had talked about one of them you go live on the website, one you don't. What is the time lapse before it gets to cable? Is it a day, is it 2 days, or?
Between the time the meeting's done and recorded and be available for playback? Well, generally, with Isaac is our current technician, and in his contract, I think he's got a 48-hour turnaround time that we've asked him to be able to have that recording ready for our use. And so I would assume that would still stay at 48 hours. I don't think his work on his end is, or whoever the technician is future years, is going to change at all. I think we'd still want that 48. So, you know, if somebody's going to see the meeting on a Monday night, I would think by Wednesday, maybe Thursday at the latest. And then you'd be able to, you know, replay it on Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, Monday, whatever you'd like to do, different times of the day. So there's gonna be, I think there'd be plenty of opportunities for people be able to see the meeting. Right now, or when our old arrangement, I know there was a schedule. I don't know. I can't remember when our replay night was or day was with, because there were 17 cities competing for time on the cable channel because we were all in one gymongous group. We won't have that issue. We can replay it at our leisure and our schedule. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, kind of. I'm still fuzzy on, if we did it the one way, it would go live on our internet site, right?
Well, you'd be able to see it live on television right now.
Right.
Once we're up and going.
But if you did.
We don't even do that. We're not doing that now. We didn't do that before with LMCC. The only way you saw it was a replay.
Right, so our two options are live on the internet, but not live on cable, is that right? Or did I misunderstand?
No, it's live on cable.
Live on cable.
Live on cable and not live on internet.
Well,
Correct.
So it's
But we
not
could probably
on
put it on the
internet at
internet
all.
too. I'll look into that, but
What if we, how does that affect this bid if we do it?
not at all. I mean, what we're doing is we're purchasing the equipment that allows us to stream
Oh.
it some way or provide a live broadcast some way or another. Whether we put it on the internet or we put it on live TV, this allows us to put it on live. That system right there, the only way you're seeing it is on a recording, replay. There's no live at all right now. Never was in the past, nor there is there right now.
Okay, so.
And usually when does it get up then on YouTube? Is it 2 days?
I put 48 hours in the contract, but I usually have it uploaded within a day.
Yeah.
Generally, staff has to add the agenda and stuff to the comments, and so there's other activities that staff has to
Right.
do after he's done. And also, you know, the reason we're putting it on YouTube right now is because we don't have, our website is not big enough to be able to host those meetings, and so the website would also play into being able to stream them live on the website.
Right.
We need to have a bigger website, which would be a bigger cost.
Which we're
Which
also
would be
looking at.
nice.
Which
for
is
our
why
city, though.
LMCD isn't doing that. LMCD has decided not, because they don't have the room, unless that's changed.
I don't think so.
I just wanted to say that, like, if you wanted to put the videos on the site, YouTube's a lot better option because it's built for video. With your site, you'd have to buy more bandwidth, more
Yeah.
space.
But you can always put a link.
YouTube has everything for
Yeah,
free.
you can host it there.
Okay, so Mr. Barone, what are you asking the council for tonight besides money?
Well, that's essentially it. I'm asking you for,
Oh, I'm sorry, did you have?
to approve the
Yeah.
quote from EPA Audio.
I guess the one, how does, I mean, what's this gonna look like? Our screen and stuff, is that gonna change?
Well, the screen will probably keep as is, or we'll remove it and maybe figure out a way to paint that wall bright white or something. There are some limitations, borders. The projector will be a ceiling mount. It'll hang from the ceiling, won't be this cart and all this stuff. The advantage of, when we incorporate the ceiling mounted projector, right now what's going on is our technician is taking a picture of that.
The agenda,
And
right?
anything that's up on that screen, he's taking a picture of it. What will happen in the future is whatever's being projected out will be electronically incorporated into the recording of the meeting or broadcast of the meeting. And the technician will have that ability. So if you're talking about something, Mr. Van der Linde, and you want to refer to something on it, in the back, he'll just change it and you'll see that. And then if you're still talking, he'll come back to you. He'll have different presets on all the cameras for everybody that sits at this table. He'll have a preset for whoever's standing at the microphone at the speaker's podium. And those will all be preset and he'll be able to move that around. Right now what he's doing, he's just panning the camera to get all these views. He'll be able to incorporate not only that, but all our discussions that we're doing as individuals. We'll be able to put up some graphics, put up your name and your position title, whether you're staff or council member. I mean, this could be really nice for the production quality that people are going to be able to see. And of course, they'll be using the same microphone, so the sound quality will be really good too.
Right, and that was my whole point, is asking about that, because that is, I mean, it works.
It works,
right now,
but it's old.
Right,
It's
it
old
could
school.
use some improvement. I know, I've had some comments from people that, when you're watching it on, the website.
It's hard to see that.
It's hard to see that
Yeah.
part of it.
And in the future, it'll be just as if you see it on your computer screen versus a
Right.
projected picture on a wall.
Good,
So,
good.
Mr. Barone, and is it two or three cameras? 'Cause
Three cameras.
Three cameras, so.
There'll be two, they'll designated in the back will hit all of the people up here on this dais and at the table here, and one for not only for the speaker, but also for the crowd shot as well, so. Any other questions that I might answer?
Any questions? And so you're asking for this money so you can order this equipment, is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
And it goes to EPA for $45,453.79.
Yes.
Council, are you interested? I'm assuming you are. Are you interested in that?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded then to order equipment for our council chambers from EPA Audiovisual, $45,453.79. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the motion will carry 5-0. Let me table that, so, okay. Moving on then to the administrative items. First one under A is approving the claims. Who is doing the claims, you, Mike? Or how does that go? Everybody has questions, or?
I'll make a motion to approve the claims.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the claims as they were presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the motion will carry 5-0. Let's see. I wanted to just remind everybody that at your places today, you found several little pieces of paper that were given either to be taken in place of something that we had on the agenda. I had several of them here, and then we had a directive from, I believe it was Kennedy and Graven, and we had a couple, I don't know if Bolton and Mink gave us anything more or not. That's all the reports that I have for this time, though.
I have none.
We did have our LMCD meeting last week, and both the dock approval of Orchard Cove and Ridgewood Cove were tabled.
Where is Orchard Cove? Just from
That's the Walls property.
the wall. And Jennings Cove too?
They
Or
wanted,
Ridgewood Cove?
and Ridgewood Cove. They wanted more information on ownership,
Sure.
specifically whether the city was going to place an adverse claim on the city-owned property, that was actually riparian lakeshore. That was one of the questions. And so there was a motion made to table it. It'll be coming back at the next LMCD meeting, and they're going to look for some direction from the city as to whether the city is going to do that or not.
That'll give our attorney something to do.
So I had actually mentioned it to David, so I think he's probably mentioned it to you. And then, so that's it on LMCD.
Arlene?
I'd just like to remind everyone that on April 3rd, Center at 6:30, they're gonna have the drug abuse forum and talking about marijuana. And also at the Park Commission meeting, it was recommended that we take cash in lieu of any land, and because of the fact that we have Friendship Park and will be Gillespie Park.
Oh, from the Wallace property or whatever it's called?
Wallace
Orchard
property.
Cove.
Okay, cool. Bob?
The only thing I have is WCC has started the beginning stages of the planning for the Spirit of the Lakes. And the question then becomes, as part of the Spirit of the Lakes, how big of a part or what part, if any, does the city of Minnetrista want to participate in? And that's done in multiple different ways. One is obviously from a donation standpoint or sponsorship, it's called. Two, with the sponsorship, do you take it to the level where you have a business showcase, or in this particular case, a showcase? And three, a unit in the parade. In the past, I know, for example, our company has participated in the past at that level or sponsorship level. And it's just something I'd like each of you to think about. Do we, as a city of Minnetrista, should we participate and at what level?
I always ride in the parade with Paul, usually, just in the squad, you know.
Yeah.
So that's an entry fee, of course, but there's lots of other things that we
Yeah.
could do.
There's things, as you know, I mean, you've been there, there's business showcases or showcases
Right.
that we could do something for on behalf of the city to sell or
I
show
think
our
we should
city.
put our heads together and we could certainly order something that advertises us and,
And this was one of the things that we had discussed in our strategic planning anyway, of how we
Right.
can participate. So again, I'm throwing it out. The beginning stages have taken place. I know they've already come to me, as for Christians Inc. for the solicitation of the sponsorship, which we will be doing. So I'd like to see the city participate.
I'd like to see us participate in some way that shows our name, though.
Yeah,
Not just give them
Which-
some money and, you
which
know,
we can
walk away.
do through a showcase or,
Yeah,
something like that.
okay, that's
Okay.
good. Anything else? Okay, staff, you have a whole lengthy thing here.
All right, yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. A number of things listed under staff reports. We'll try to get through these as quickly as possible. First thing is just really upcoming special meeting topics on page 91 of your packet is the list that you saw at the last council meeting. Nothing's really changed from that list. I do want to point out that really our next work session will be dedicated to water sustainability. We do have a number of guest speakers coming in to talk about, again, more of the water issues and water sustainability. So I'm pleased that we'll be having representatives from Met Council and DNR here to talk about that issue. We also talked about at the last council meeting is scheduling 2 work sessions a month. So there are roughly 6 or 7 items listed on page 91 for topics in April. So we'll mainly kind of split those up between the 2 work sessions in April. And if there's, again, something else that the council wishes to add to the April work sessions, we'd like to hear that from you this evening if possible. Otherwise, certainly let staff know and we'll be sure to add it. Second item here is probably a number of items, just kind of more for your information regarding some upcoming conferences and other types of meetings versus the LMC, League of Minnesota Cities Annual Conference. That starts on page 92 of your packet. It's June 18th through 20th in St. Cloud this year. I did put in the full brochure for your information, so if there are there's something you're interested in attending, or if there's a number of sessions you want to attend on a particular day or both days, there are some options, whether you want to attend the full conference, partial conference, or the other. So if you're interested, feel free to let staff know, and then we'll make sure we take care of the accommodations. Metro Cities also has their annual conference coming up. Get the date here. There's should be something in your packet on that. Not seen it.
Should be pretty soon.
I apologize, looks like it's not there. We do have the Metro Cities Conference coming up. I don't have the date listed, but I'll circle back to that here in a second. We also then have the MSP 2040 Thrive, that's the Met Council initiative. So as you've probably seen from past correspondence, either from staff or Met Council staff, the Met Council is working on their long-term visioning process. They do have a couple public hearings that are coming up, and so if any of the council are interested in attending those are listed on the agenda. The first one being April 5th, and the next one being April 10th. So those are the two dates. Again, the agenda is more specific in your packet, and so again, if you're interested in what the Met Council is discussing, feel free to let staff know, and we'll make sure we have you in attendance. Probably the biggest thing for the Thrive 2040 from a staff perspective is the population estimates. Initially, those estimates, when those came out a number of months ago, staff had a concern about the forecasting. We thought the forecasting was probably a little light on Met Council's efforts. We provided comments regarding that. And frankly, a lot of cities commented on the population estimates. That was probably one of the biggest areas that the Met Council heard from in terms of from cities. The Met Council has recalculated those estimates, and I think those again were recently provided to you. So mainly for cities, it's about population estimates and how they're forecasting those out. So if you have an interest, council, in being part of the public hearing process, those are the two dates identified. There's also an AIS symposium coming up, again listed in your packet, I believe starting on page 100. That is an event on Wednesday, March 19th, yeah, so 2 days from today, so Wednesday, March 19th at Kelly Inn in St. Paul. So this is being hosted by the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. A lot of speakers on AIS. So again, if you're interested in attending, there is a registration fee, and we can help you on that effort if it fits into your schedule. Other things, and I think Mr. Falls wants to speak about the marijuana, a timely discussion session that's coming up. We're getting to the end of the meeting. I can't tell you as a city administrator if I've ever had to type marijuana on an agenda before. But there is a marijuana session coming up, hosted by the police department's involved, and then I think Councilmember Donahue just mentioned it as well. So I know Paul wanted to speak on it just for a few minutes.
Yeah, I was just going to, thank you, Mr. Funk. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I was just going to draw your attention to this. It's another one of our Lake Community Public Forum meetings. This one happens to be on the topic of marijuana at kind of a timely time of year, or this is an issue in the forefront of our state at this time, as well as around the country. So this date was chosen carefully. With that, it is on page 101 of your packet is the handout. Kind of goes through who the lead presenter is and what the format will be for that. I will certainly be there that evening for questions afterwards as part of that public forum. So just wanted to draw your attention to that.
Thank you. I have a question for the council and for Mike especially, and I'll send it to you because I forgot it tonight. But I keep getting, sometimes you get what's called a mayor's listserv, and they start sending you asking all kinds of crazy questions, and they really, most of them don't pertain to you. They might have a population of 140 or something. But lately one's been really flying around about donate life. And it means, do you give, you have a proclamation, and you give a proclamation that you will support, giving life, and that would include like bone marrow transplant, it would include organ donation. I mean, you don't have to specify, just that you support it. And I wanted to ask you if you wanted to do that or not. It's simple. I mean, I don't have to answer to anyone or anything, but.
I guess, I don't know if you're asking the question to me, but I haven't seen that type
I'll
of
send it to you.
question. You send it out. I think it's probably, once I see it, it's probably something more for the council in terms of a proclamation or something the council wants to declare. So I think it's probably more in the council's arena
I'll
than
send it
staff's,
to
but
you and
we'll-
you can, we can
We can
talk about it
distribute
if
it to
you're
the
interested
council.
in it. I'll have him do up a proclamation, or I will, and we'll have it at the next meeting or something.
Yeah.
If I'm not too late. Okay, that's it, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. Just real quickly, Madam Mayor and Council, on page 87, apologize I got out of sequence, but on page 87 is the Metro City's annual meeting notice. That is Thursday, April 24th. The agenda is listed in your packet, so again, another event, so we're not trying to book up your calendar for the next few months, but certainly a number of events for your information. And then really the last kind of couple items that I would turn over to Mr. Erickson is the annual road restrictions and the road grader bids. Just want to give you a quick update on that front.
Okay, Mr. Merrickson?
Thank you. Our road restrictions did go on Friday, consistent with the state's posting. Friday of last week at 12:01 a.m., our crew, Public Works crew, was out all day Friday putting up those road postings. We received a request Thursday before they went on to break those road restrictions. And I wanted to
Yeah?
just take a quick opportunity to discuss. I know this was a relatively lengthy discussion item last year with regard to road restrictions, and what happened in this case, we had a property or a builder, Lennar Construction, building. They just excavated a basement, and they had scheduled footings to be poured on Friday, the day that the restrictions went on, and then had planned for about, I think they indicated 250 yards for poured walls within that. And so they'd be having truck after truck after truck going in on what happens to be a very poorly conditioned roadway as it exists today. And staff kind of held firm with our restrictions at this point right now. Wanted to just take an opportunity to discuss with council. Obviously, we have provisions for, obviously, fire trucks, sanitary sewer, if there's septic issues, allowances for people to go in, essentially waivers. But previously, we said, waivers for construction-related activities likely would not be granted. And I just wanted to reaffirm our stance as a city, if that is still the case. We indicated we'd let this gentleman know after the council meeting, but as it stood at this point, that we weren't going to allow that. Once the restrictions are lifted, they can come back in and start doing that. But I thought it'd just be at least a worthwhile discussion item for staff to have with council and make sure that we're implementing what you'd like us to. The roadway in question was, I believe, right off of 44, correct? Stonebridge Court. So it's just south of Hermitage Shores. The roadway, I think we all know, is in poor condition, and it's just a question, right now, with the weather we've had, it's this week, it's, probably firming back up a little bit. I don't know where it's at, but it is certainly something that we're cognizant of and want to make sure we're implementing what the council would like us to on that. You can.
This is kind of a catch-22, because we haven't had a 53 days below zero since 1978. And a lot of the road restrictions are addressed due to the fact of, causing damage to the roads. And that typically is taking place when the frost leaves. Is the frost that's currently in the ground equal to what it was in February? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. I mean, do you put it out, are we a week early? Maybe a week early because of the 53 days below sub-zero temperature that
That's a
we've
good
had?
question.
I think it's starting to lift a
Well, we
little bit.
typically follow the state, right?
Really, and that's a true statement. We don't have the sensors in the ground, and I mean they do
Oh,
try to
they do?
monitor that. So they
Okay.
have, that's why we rely on their guidance. We typically last maybe a week longer than them due to the fact that most of theirs are on highways. There's not trees overhanging the roadways where it's keeping that frost in. And so we try to play it safe on the tail end of things there. And so I think it's.
And they didn't call ahead of time to find out?
They did not call ahead of time, no.
So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of a poor planning, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, normally you can figure between the 1st to the 15th of March, they're going on. The Carver County put theirs on, the state put theirs on.
County's
So,
probably got theirs on.
yeah, somebody dropped.
You know, I'm not saying that we should grant it, I'm just saying there's a question,
Yeah.
is there a difference in, based on how things are looked at? Because that's when you have your issues, was when the frost comes out of the ground, and it's the frost coming out later. And then again, you also have to look at, well, I guess not, maybe it's planning,
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was bad planning.
so.
Well, are you okay with it, or is there something you wanna do about it, or?
No, I don't have a problem with it, like I say, that's, you know, industry-wide, you know they're coming on in March. So if you have an issue where you think you might be running close, you pick up the phone, you call Public Works and say, when are you guys thinking about putting them on? Because I got this project I gotta get done. So,
You know, I'll get my machinery right out there.
well, and that's what you do.
Yeah,
mean,
I
it's-
know.
It happens every year, so if they, and that's surprising from Lennar that happened. I could have seen a small builder that wasn't familiar with the regulations and stuff, you know.
And I guess you can't really classify that as a emergency.
No, it's not, you know, I mean, it's
Well, yeah.
unfortunate that they planned it that way, but, you know, I mean, you know,
Well,
maybe
they
they
know
ran into
better.
it because there's so much frost in the ground that it took longer to dig it, but
Yeah.
they dig basements all winter long, you know, Lennar knows, you know.
One additional item, I know that we were provided some discretion on that. I know last year we had a circumstance where a person wanted to move into their home and they couldn't get in because and I think those we're still gonna continue to allow, as long as council is okay with staff having some discretion on the circumstance.
Yeah, I would be in favor of that. I mean,
Right.
there are circumstances
That's
like
what we
that. In fact, I
typically
was
do.
involved with one last year where we had road restrictions and we moved. I don't know
Mhm.
if I talked to you or somebody, but we moved a family with a moving truck over, which would be over the limits of the road restriction shortly after. At no fault of theirs, because they couldn't move because the house wasn't ready. So that
Okay.
was- I'm fine
We're
with
all
that.
okay with that, so. Road grader. I'm
Road
not trying to
grader.
hurry us along, but
All right, no
how long
problem.
can you talk about road restrictions?
Staff immediately, once we had received authorization to sell the motor grader at a minimum of $100,000, Gary in particular had made a few calls and had interest right away. And in the meantime, Brian and I were working to find out the legalities of how a city needs to go about selling the motor grader. And we had a number of options. One is to accept sealed bids, another is an auction, or another is a trade-in. But the trade-in option, we didn't have anything that we were authorized to trade for. So that we kind of ruled out immediately. The other option was auction. And, I checked into a couple of auction houses. For equipment like this, we have to typically mobilize that to the auction place. They had indicated that, based on what they've seen in previous auctions, they kind of give you an idea of what it may sell for. And they had provided an estimate of right around that $95,000 to $105,000 range. Public Works staff, again, had their feet on the ground checking into things already, and they felt that they had a buyer at almost about $130,000. And so we decided to go the route of sealed bids and set a minimum of $120,000. Sent that out. We advertised in the local paper as required by statute. We advertised in the Finance and Commerce League of Minnesota Cities. We sent it out to all the contractors we know. I know Gary talked to a number of vendors. Bid date came and went without a single bid, including the gentleman that thought we were going to receive the bid from. So I just wanted to give you that update. Staff is going to continue to investigate ways that we can, we're going to try to reach that gentleman and
call him
find out what
back.
happened. But, I think we need to bring this item back. We need to identify what our next plan is and make sure the council's comfortable moving forward with that, and we'll bring that as a future discussion item.
Okay.
Well, as long as you bring that up, was it budgeted to have for a tractor this year? Or was that
That's
not?
one of the item that I was gonna bring back, and I did have that conversation with a couple of vendors, and they certainly are willing. That was a discussion item. We didn't have authorization for that. That is maybe our wish list. But if we were to trade in the motor grader and purchase something, they would, in return, send back the check for the balance. So we wouldn't have to trade in for the full value, essentially. And so I need to check on the legalities of that as well with our, we utilized our auditor while they're here to make sure we're doing things properly. And
Yeah, and
that is something that we'll look into a little
I
further.
asked her on Friday when they were out here finishing up the audit on Friday, and she thought that would be fine.
Oh,
to
great.
do the trade-in, buy the tractor and trade in, or further, or it basically would just be a trade-in, and then we get the net difference, so.
Do we need a tractor? Just out of the curiosity.
Or what,
Something that we
or what
want.
was the item in our,
There was a tractor that, I think is a wish list item that we've identified.
I thought there was something in our CIP, I'd have to go back, I don't have it in front of me.
It is in the CIP, but I don't know if it's, we typically bring those larger items
Yeah,
back
right.
to council to confirm that it's okay to do that. We currently rent a unit that's relatively expensive. Last year, we got a bargain because they wanted us to try a piece of equipment that they would like us to buy. But previously, that's something that won't continue. They'll catch on real quick. But I believe the cost for rental of that unit was, I think, $10,000 to $11,000 annually. So I think we were looking at a tractor that was, 50, 60, somewhere in that range, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe, I think it was in the $60,000 range, but something that we can certainly investigate and bring back. Whatever value that tractor is, if you want us to pursue trading it in, and then we can,
Well, it'd be interesting, if we can sell it outright, great, but
Right.
if it comes to a point where you can't get rid of it, and you don't wanna give it away,
Right.
and then go next year, whatever,
Yeah.
buy a tractor, I mean, so if you wanna, it makes more sense, because you're gonna get more value when you trade it in, than trying to sell it outright to an equipment dealer.
right?
And-
In trade-in, you don't pay the taxes on the
Right.
difference, so.
And an auction is, it's a crapshoot, and I don't know what they're getting, 8 to 10% commission now.
10%, we looked at the commission, so the commission is relatively expensive. We have to get the equipment there,
Yeah.
and then we were looking at a cost of, 95 to 105 that would receive, less their commission and the cost for us to get it there. So that's the route we chose. We were disappointed to not have any bids when we thought we had one for well in excess of what our minimum was, so.
It didn't. The 120 scare them?
I don't know, yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
I talked to Gary briefly today, he mentioned that it sounded like the guy was maybe on vacation and forgot about it and then called the day late, so, or day late and dollar short, right?
Might be something that we could get,
Get
two birds with one stone. We could trade it in for the 130, receive that tax break on the new tractor. So it could potentially work out in the best interest for everybody. We could have a win-win there. We'll look into that. I'll report back.
Okay, reminder of upcoming meetings, special and regular, April 7th. Otherwise, anything else from staff?
That's it, Madam Mayor and Council.
Right, then I think we're done.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.